In today's rapidly evolving geopolitical landscape, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, once hailed as a bastion of Western security, is increasingly seen by some as a relic of a bygone era. Originally established to counter Soviet expansion, NATO's relevance and effectiveness are now under scrutiny. Critics argue that it has become more of a burden than a benefit for the United States. With rising costs, shifting strategic priorities, and divergent member interests, the alliance seems to be straining under its own weight. This video will explore why NATO's current role may not align with America's evolving foreign policy objectives and security needs. We will examine the historical foundations of NATO, its Cold War achievements, and the challenges it faces in today's multipolar world. Stay tuned as we delve into the complexities of transatlantic relations and the future of this historic alliance. NATO was established in 1949 in the aftermath of World War II as a collective defense alliance among Western nations to deter Soviet aggression. The founding members included the United States, Canada, and several Western European countries. The core principle was enshrined in Article 5, which states that an armed attack against one or more members is considered an attack against them all. This collective security framework was essential during the Cold War, serving as a counterbalance to the Soviet-led Warsaw Pact. The alliance aimed to prevent the spread of communism and maintain peace in Europe, while providing a platform for transatlantic dialogue and cooperation. Over the years, NATO expanded its membership and scope, adapting to new security challenges. However, the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War prompted questions about NATO's role in a world without its primary adversary. During the Cold War, NATO was central to Western defense strategy, ensuring that Europe remained secure from Soviet encroachment. The alliance conducted numerous military exercises and maintained a significant troop presence in Europe. NATO's doctrine of deterrence was based on the concept of mutually assured destruction, which effectively prevented direct conflict with the Soviet Union. The alliance also adapted to various crises, including the Berlin blockade and the Cuban Missile Crisis, reinforcing its role as a stabilizing force. However, the Cold War period was not without challenges. Differences in strategic priorities among member states occasionally surfaced, testing the cohesion of the alliance. Despite these challenges, NATO's existence was justified by the clear and present threat posed by the Soviet Union, which unified members under a common cause. With the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, NATO faced an identity crisis. The alliance had to reinvent itself to remain relevant in a world where its primary adversary no longer existed. This led to an expansion of its mission, including crisis management and peacekeeping operations in the Balkans during the 1990s. NATO also began to incorporate former Warsaw Pact members, further provoking Russia. The strategic shift aimed to adapt to new security challenges like ethnic conflicts, terrorism, and cyber threats. Yet, the absence of a clear, unified threat led to questions about NATO's purpose and cohesion. The expansion eastwards was seen by some as unnecessary provocation, while others viewed it as a natural extension of Western security. This period marked a transformation in NATO's role, from a strictly defensive alliance to a more complex security organization. The United States has been the cornerstone of NATO since its inception, contributing the most to its budget and military capabilities. This leadership role was essential during the Cold War, but has become increasingly complex in the post-Cold War world. While the U.S. continues to provide the backbone of NATO's military strength, questions have arisen regarding the equitable distribution of responsibilities among member nations. The U.S. often finds itself shouldering a disproportionate share of the alliance's burdens, leading to debates about the sustainability of this dynamic. Washington has urged European allies to increase their defense spending and take on greater responsibilities. The expectation is that a more balanced contribution will strengthen the alliance and reduce America's financial and military load. However, achieving this balance has proven challenging, with varying levels of commitment and capability among member states. The financial burden of maintaining NATO has been a contentious issue, particularly for the United States. As the largest contributor, the U.S. allocates a significant portion of its defense budget to NATO operations, which includes funding for infrastructure, military exercises, and joint operations. Critics argue that these funds could be better spent addressing domestic priorities or modernizing the U.S. military independently. Furthermore, the disparity in defense spending among NATO members has been a point of contention. Many European allies have struggled to meet the NATO guideline of spending 2% of their GDP on defense, leading to calls for more equitable burden sharing. This financial imbalance has fueled debates in Washington about the value and sustainability of continued U.S. investment in the alliance. As global economic pressures mount, the financial costs of NATO are increasingly scrutinized. The military contributions within NATO have been a topic of significant debate. The alliance operates under a principle of collective defense, yet the distribution of military resources and capabilities is uneven. The United States contributes the majority of NATO's military assets, including advanced technology, manpower, and logistics support. European allies, while possessing capable forces, often rely on U.S. military support for strategic operations. This reliance has raised questions about the operational readiness and independence of European military forces. Furthermore, the disparity in contributions has led to discussions about the modernization and interoperability of NATO forces. Achieving a balanced military contribution is seen as crucial for reinforcing the alliance's credibility and effectiveness. However, differing national priorities and budgetary constraints have complicated efforts to align military capabilities across member states. The global security landscape has evolved significantly since NATO's founding, presenting new challenges that the alliance must address. Traditional state-centric threats have been supplemented by non-state actors, cyber threats, and asymmetric warfare. These complex security challenges require a coordinated and adaptive response from NATO. However, the alliance's focus on traditional military capabilities has sometimes been criticized for not fully addressing these emerging threats. The rise of China, persistent instability in the Middle East, and the resurgence of Russia as a regional power have further complicated NATO's strategic environment. These developments necessitate a reassessment of NATO's strategic priorities and capabilities. The alliance must balance its traditional defense posture with the need to address unconventional threats, ensuring its continued relevance in a rapidly changing world. In the 21st century, NATO faces a range of new threats that challenge its traditional defense structures. Cybersecurity has emerged as a critical area of concern, with state and non-state actors targeting critical infrastructure and democratic processes. Hybrid warfare, which combines conventional military tactics with cyber operations, disinformation, and economic pressure, has become a significant threat. Additionally, the rise of China as a global power presents strategic challenges that NATO must address. The alliance's ability to adapt to these new realities is crucial for its future effectiveness. Achieving interoperability among members, cyber defenses, and developing cohesive strategies to counter hybrid threats are priorities. As these challenges continue to evolve, NATO's role in addressing them will be a key factor in determining its relevance in the modern security environment. Disagreements among NATO allies have become more pronounced in recent years, affecting the cohesion and unity of the alliance. Divergent national interests, political priorities, and strategic approaches have led to tensions. Issues such as defense spending, burden sharing, and military interventions have sparked debates. For instance, differing views on relations with Russia and China have highlighted the challenges of maintaining a unified stance. The U.S. has often expressed frustration with European allies over their defense contributions, while some European nations have criticized U.S. foreign policy decisions. These disagreements underscore the need for greater dialogue and compromise within NATO. As the alliance navigates an increasingly complex global environment, fostering cooperation and understanding among members will be crucial for its continued relevance and effectiveness. In recent years, there has been growing discourse around the capability and responsibility of European nations to manage their own defense. Historically, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, has been a cornerstone of collective defense, largely supported by the United States. However, as geopolitical dynamics shift, EU member states are increasingly urged to boost their own military capacities. Initiatives like the Permanent Structured Cooperation (PESCO) aim to enhance EU defense capabilities independently of NATO. The reliance on American military power has sparked debates within Europe about sovereignty and strategic autonomy. European leaders like Emmanuel Macron and Ursula von der Leyen have emphasized the need for a European army to ensure security without over-reliance on the U.S. This shift could redefine transatlantic ties, with Europe taking greater responsibility for its security. This ongoing evolution raises critical questions about NATO's future role, as European countries balance their alliance commitments with the desire for increased defense independence. The United States has long been the backbone of NATO, contributing significantly more to the alliance's budget and military operations than its European counterparts. This disproportionate contribution has raised concerns about the strategic burden placed on the U.S. As Washington grapples with a myriad of global challenges, including the rise of China and tensions in the Indo-Pacific, the necessity of maintaining such a heavy commitment to NATO is questioned. Critics argue that this focus detracts from the U.S.'s ability to address more pressing issues in other regions. Furthermore, the financial strain of supporting NATO has become a contentious issue domestically, with some policymakers advocating for a reallocation of resources. The debate centers on whether the U.S. should continue to bear the lion's share of NATO's costs or encourage Europe to step up its contributions. This discourse is pivotal, as it could redefine the U.S.'s role in global security and lead to a recalibration of its strategic priorities. The economic implications of NATO's existence and the U.S.'s role within the alliance are far-reaching. The U.S.'s significant financial commitment to NATO, estimated at billions of dollars annually, diverts funds from domestic priorities such as infrastructure, education, and healthcare. This has sparked political debates about the opportunity cost of such expenditures. There's also the impact on U.S. industries, as defense contracts related to NATO commitments influence domestic economic activity. While these contracts can bolster sectors like aerospace and defense, they may also contribute to an imbalance in federal spending priorities. European nations, on the other hand, face pressures to increase their defense budgets, potentially affecting their social welfare systems. The broader economic relationship between the U.S. and Europe is also shaped by NATO dynamics, influencing trade policies and transatlantic business ties. As both sides reassess their financial commitments, the economic landscape of the alliance may undergo significant shifts. Public opinion plays a critical role in shaping NATO's future and the U.S.'s involvement in the alliance. In the United States, public sentiment has become increasingly skeptical about the benefits of maintaining strong NATO ties, especially as domestic issues take precedence for many citizens. Polls indicate a growing desire among Americans for European nations to assume more responsibility for their own defense. This sentiment is echoed in Europe, where some populations question the necessity of U.S. involvement in their security affairs, advocating for a more autonomous defense strategy. Public opinion can influence policy decisions, as elected officials often respond to the concerns of their constituents. The divergence in public attitudes across the Atlantic could lead to policy shifts within NATO, as member states seek to align their defense strategies with domestic preferences. Understanding these public perspectives is essential for policymakers, as they navigate the complex landscape of international defense alliances. The security dynamics within NATO have evolved significantly since its inception. Originally formed to counter the Soviet threat during the Cold War, NATO's mission has expanded to include counterterrorism, cyber defense, and crisis management. However, the shifting nature of global threats has raised questions about NATO's current relevance. The rise of non-state actors, cyber warfare, and hybrid warfare tactics requires a different strategic approach than traditional military alliances. Critics argue that NATO's structure and decision-making processes are too slow to adapt to these modern challenges. Furthermore, the alliance's focus on collective defense may not adequately address the diverse security concerns of its members. As NATO navigates these complex security landscapes, it must balance traditional defense commitments with the need to innovate and modernize its strategies. This ongoing adaptation is crucial to maintaining the alliance's credibility and effectiveness in the 21st century. The global security landscape has undergone significant shifts, influencing NATO's strategic relevance. The end of the Cold War marked a turning point, as the alliance sought new missions beyond deterring Soviet aggression. The rise of China as a global power and its assertive policies in the Indo-Pacific have shifted the focus of international security discussions. Additionally, Russia's actions in Ukraine have reinforced NATO's original purpose of collective defense. However, the emergence of new security domains, such as cyber warfare and space security, challenges traditional military paradigms. These shifts require NATO to adapt its strategies to address diverse threats while maintaining cohesion among its members. The alliance faces the dual challenge of remaining relevant in a multipolar world and ensuring that its strategies are agile enough to respond to rapid geopolitical changes. As NATO navigates these complexities, its ability to innovate and collaborate with global partners will be crucial for its continued significance. The rise of new global players has complicated the traditional security framework that NATO operates within. Emerging powers like India, Brazil, and ASEAN countries are asserting their influence on international affairs, challenging the dominance of traditional Western alliances. These nations bring diverse perspectives and priorities to global security discussions, often diverging from NATO's traditional focus. For instance, India's growing economic and military capabilities have positioned it as a key player in the Indo-Pacific, with strategic partnerships extending beyond Western alliances. Similarly, ASEAN's approach to security emphasizes regional cooperation and diplomacy, which may not always align with NATO's military-oriented strategies. These emerging players contribute to a multipolar world where power is more distributed, requiring NATO to engage in broader dialogues and collaborations. As the global landscape evolves, NATO must adapt to not only address traditional threats but also engage with these rising powers to maintain global stability. As NATO's member states face diverse domestic challenges and threats, their goals and priorities often diverge, complicating unified strategic planning. For instance, while Eastern European members prioritize defense against Russian aggression, Southern European countries are more focused on issues such as migration and economic stability. This divergence can lead to tensions within the alliance, as resources and attention must be balanced across varying needs. The United States, as the leading force within NATO, often finds itself mediating these differences, which can strain its diplomatic relationships. Furthermore, differing political climates and leadership changes in member countries can alter national priorities, affecting NATO's cohesion. The challenge lies in maintaining a coherent alliance strategy that addresses both collective defense and individual member concerns. As NATO evolves, it must navigate these internal dynamics to ensure that it remains a relevant and effective force in global security. The geopolitical landscape is shifting in ways that challenge NATO's traditional role and strategic focus. The return of great power competition, particularly between the US, China, and Russia, has redefined global alliances and rivalries. In Europe, Russia's assertive actions in Ukraine and its influence in the region have prompted NATO to reinforce its eastern flank. Meanwhile, the Indo-Pacific region has become a focal point of strategic competition, with China expanding its military capabilities and influence. These developments require NATO to reassess its priorities and adapt to a world where multiple powerful actors vie for influence. The alliance's ability to respond to these changes while maintaining unity among its members will be crucial. As NATO navigates these geopolitical shifts, its strategies must evolve to address both traditional and emerging threats, ensuring its continued relevance in a rapidly changing world. As NATO faces internal challenges and evolving global threats, alternative alliances and partnerships are gaining attention. Countries are exploring new security arrangements that reflect regional priorities and geopolitical realities. For example, the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, Quad, involving the US, India, Japan, and Australia, focuses on Indo-Pacific security and represents a strategic partnership outside of NATO's framework. Similarly, European nations are considering increased defense integration within the EU, potentially reducing reliance on NATO. These developments highlight a trend towards more flexible and region-specific security arrangements. While these alternative alliances do not replace NATO, they reflect a shifting emphasis in global security strategy. As nations adapt to new threats and opportunities, these partnerships can complement NATO's efforts by addressing specific regional challenges. Understanding the implications of these alliances is crucial for policymakers as they navigate the complex web of international security. As we look towards the future of transatlantic relations, a critical question emerges. Can NATO adapt to the evolving geopolitical landscape effectively? The alliance, primarily founded to counter Soviet threats, now faces different challenges such as cybersecurity threats, terrorism, and the rise of China. Many argue that these threats require a unified response, yet the transatlantic alliance is showing signs of strain. The United States, under pressure to shift its focus towards the Indo-Pacific region, is questioning the cost of maintaining traditional European commitments. Meanwhile, European nations are grappling with internal divisions, such as Brexit, and differing defense priorities which complicate unified action. The ability of NATO to remain relevant will rely heavily on its capacity to evolve and address these divergent threats while maintaining cohesion among its members. This future hinges on the ability to reformulate shared goals that align with the current global context, ensuring that NATO remains a pillar of global security without becoming a disproportionate burden on any single member state. Reform suggestions for NATO have been circulating among policymakers and experts for years. One primary recommendation is the need for a more equitable sharing of financial burdens among member states. Currently, the United States shoulders a significant portion of the military spending, and there is increasing pressure for European members to increase their defense budgets. Additionally, NATO could benefit from modernizing its strategic objectives to better address non-traditional threats, such as cyber attacks and hybrid warfare. Another important area for reform is improving decision-making processes to make them more agile and responsive to rapidly changing global threats. Encouraging greater collaboration and technological advancements, particularly in areas like artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, could also enhance NATO's capabilities. These reforms are essential not only to reduce the pressure on the United States, but also to ensure that NATO remains a relevant and effective force in global security. Implementing these changes will require political will and cooperation from all member states, emphasizing the importance of collective commitment. Looking ahead, several potential scenarios could unfold regarding NATO's future. One possibility is the status quo, where NATO continues its current operations with minor adjustments. This approach may maintain stability, but risks failing to address emerging threats effectively. Another scenario involves significant restructuring, focusing on expanding capabilities in cyber defense and hybrid warfare, addressing the changing nature of global conflict. Alternatively, we might see a gradual shift in leadership roles, with European nations taking more responsibility for their defense, possibly leading to a more balanced transatlantic relationship. A more pessimistic scenario could involve a weakening of the alliance if divergent national interests outweigh collective goals, potentially leading to fragmentation. Each of these scenarios carries implications for global security and transatlantic relations. The path NATO chooses will depend on the political will of its members and their ability to adapt to the rapidly changing international landscape. Continuous dialogue and strategic foresight will be essential in navigating these potential futures. NATO has evolved significantly since its inception in 1949. Initially created to counter the Soviet Union's military threat, NATO has expanded its scope and membership over the decades. With the dissolution of the Soviet Union, NATO faced questions about its relevance and purpose. The alliance adapted by engaging in peacekeeping missions and addressing non-traditional threats such as terrorism. The expansion of NATO's membership to include Eastern European countries was a strategic move to strengthen the alliance's presence in regions formerly under Soviet influence. However, this expansion has also brought challenges, including the need to integrate diverse military capabilities and political priorities. In recent years, NATO's focus has shifted towards addressing threats from Russia, cybersecurity, and the strategic competition posed by China. Despite these adaptations, the alliance faces criticism for being slow to respond to new threats, and for its reliance on the United States for leadership and military support. This evolution reflects NATO's resilience but also highlights the need for ongoing reforms to maintain its relevance in a rapidly changing world. In light of current challenges, exploring strategic alternatives to NATO is a topic gaining traction among policymakers. One potential alternative is the development of a European defense force, which would allow European nations to take greater responsibility for their security. This could help reduce the burden on the United States and foster a more balanced transatlantic relationship. Another alternative involves enhancing security partnerships with non-NATO countries, particularly in regions like the Indo-Pacific, where the U.S. is increasingly focused. Such partnerships could provide flexible and region-specific responses to emerging threats. Additionally, there is a growing interest in multilateral security frameworks that include a broader range of global players, providing a platform for cooperative security efforts beyond the traditional NATO structure. These alternatives, however, come with their own set of challenges, including political, logistical, and financial hurdles. Implementing them successfully will require comprehensive planning, robust international cooperation, and a clear vision for the future of global security architecture. Based on our analysis, several policy recommendations can be made to address the current challenges facing NATO. Firstly, there is a pressing need to redefine NATO's strategic priorities to better align with contemporary threats such as cyber warfare and geopolitical shifts. This includes enhancing intelligence sharing mechanisms and investing in advanced technologies. Secondly, Fostering stronger European defense capabilities would allow for a more balanced burden-sharing arrangement. Encouraging EU countries to meet their defense spending commitments is crucial. Additionally, NATO should continue to diversify its partnerships, engaging with non-member countries to build a broader security network. Emphasizing diplomatic solutions and conflict prevention should also be a priority, reducing the potential for military escalation. Lastly, enhancing internal cohesion through regular consultations and transparent decision-making processes can help maintain unity among members. These recommendations aim to ensure NATO remains a relevant and effective force in international security, capable of adapting to the complexities of modern global threats. In concluding our analysis, it's clear that NATO faces significant challenges in maintaining its relevance and effectiveness in the modern geopolitical landscape. The alliance must navigate a complex array of threats while managing internal dynamics and external pressures. A critical point is the need for reform within NATO, emphasizing the importance of strategic adaptation to contemporary threats, equitable burden sharing, and enhanced cooperation among member states. The potential scenarios we explored highlight both opportunities and risks for NATO's future. As the international order continues to evolve, NATO's ability to remain a cornerstone of global security depends on its capacity to innovate and adapt. By implementing strategic reforms and fostering a more balanced transatlantic relationship, NATO can continue to play a vital role in maintaining peace and stability. The choices made today will shape the alliance's trajectory in the coming decades, underscoring the importance of thoughtful leadership and committed collaboration. If you found this perspective valuable, consider subscribing. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I read every one of them. Thank you for watching.